captured you. You just thought, I can do something with these kids. They, we can teach these kids something that they'll learn for life and do something different.
Paused for a second to actually think about what it is they actually want to do.
Yeah.
And then you try to explain to them, like, none of us do.
Yeah.
Do you know, we're in our 30s, 40s, 50s, and we're still going, not sure if this is it.
They're almost like a third of the workforce.
Yeah.
You're missing.
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Taylor Talks Trades. Today I'm with John Lewis from the LSTA, the Lead Training Academy. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
You've just spent the week up here with us in Scotland, training the lads.
It's been fantastic, but cold.
Cold. It's always cold up here. Time of recording this is end of January, but probably the time this goes out will maybe be like February, maybe even into March. So all these storms and everything will all be away. Yeah. But no, we'll get into it, mate. How did you get into the trades then?
So, well, talking 34, 35 years ago now, I joined the Royal Engineers and did my training as a plumber apprenticeship. And through that, obviously, we do lead work and everything else. Spent 15 years in the army, came out in 2005 and was self-employed for about 3 years.
Yeah.
Doing various different works, whether it was plumbing or lead work, either or. And then I got an opportunity to go into training. And from that point on, training has just been my life for the last sort of 18, 19 years.
Yeah.
Worked with all types of different young people, whether it's those that are getting kicked out of mainstream school or on the borderline, to be working in a college in an apprenticeships department as director of apprenticeships. And for the last 5 years, I've been the director of operations for the LSTA Training Academy.
Yeah.
And we deliver training all over the country. Obviously, delivered training for yourself this week. And yeah, it's been a fantastic ride.
And what was the apprenticeship like in the engineers, the Royal Engineers then? Because that's quite a different route, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, very different route. But within the Royal Engineers, they have, you can imagine every trade you can think of, from quantity surveyors right down to sort of bricklayers, plumbers, everything. And it was an apprenticeship program. So, we just started the apprenticeship, went off to Chepstow to do training. Yeah. And then once you'd done your apprenticeship, you went off out into the field army, and then obviously went off and did whatever you were doing.
Nobody thinks of the army being like that, I wouldn't have thought.
Yeah, so the Royal Engineers are essentially the construction element of the British Army. Yeah. And, they go off and they do various different construction projects all around the world. Because
I know, well, I'm maybe just being biased, but when I was at school, like if somebody said join the army, you just think you've got a rifle, you're at the front line, that's it. You're not thinking... like some of the people I've spoke to that's had like great careers in like mechanics and stuff like that, like brilliant with like fixing trucks and all that sort of stuff. So it's quite interesting to see that. What was obviously like your passion now is more the lead work and the hard metals. Yeah. So was there a lot of that in that apprenticeship, or was it?
Yeah, so there was quite a bit in the apprenticeship when you were doing the plumbing.
Yeah.
They've now taken it out of the qualification.
Right.
So, in fact, they took it out in the early 2000s in the UK, in England. Mm-hmm. Scotland still have it in their plumbing qualification, and SQA still continue with that, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
But when it first stopped, then lead work was kind of nowhere. So nobody really took it on.
Yeah.
Unless you were an older plumber who'd done it in their courses.
Yeah.
And it was actually Simon, one of my tutors, his dad developed the City and Guilds accreditation program.
Right.
He worked for West Kent College at the time, and he said, look, we've got to do something with this. He was a long-standing lead worker, and then just said, look, I need to develop something. So that's what he did. He developed the City and Guilds program. We still run that today. It's been going probably about 20 years now.
Yeah.
But it's,
So that could have been gone.
Absolutely. It could have just disappeared if somebody hadn't have picked up that mantle and said, look, we need to develop something to keep the traditional trade going.
Yeah.
It could have all just sort of disappeared.
Well, thankfully it did.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And it's obviously still going today.
Yeah, because it is an amazing thing, lead, to be honest.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Not to get too geeky about it, but it just is. And it is a trade on its own. really, isn't
Absolutely,
it?
100%.
Do you know, it's not a plumber's and it's not a roofer's, or it's actually its own trade.
It is.
But obviously you've been in this week with our guys, and I see, like, if you're a roofer, you need to be able to do everything that's on the roof. So I do believe that you should have those skills that can accompany it.
Yeah.
But there probably is just another level, like we've obviously worked on this week, like doing lead round chimneys and cappings and things like that, saddles and whatnot. But there's like just another couple of tiers to actual lead work, and some of the stuff the guys are doing out there, like at the moment, is just incredible.
It's phenomenal.
Actually like mind-boggling sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially, like, I've not done anything for a while, but when I did the one of the courses, I think it was with D Blake's out in Edinburgh. This was years ago. Like, remembering quite how difficult it was, and then when you pick it up, you're like, it's not too bad. But then you see some of the actual art form that's been produced, you just think that's just it's just an art form.
Yeah, it is,
and a total craft in itself. So,
and that's why we run the courses the way we do. So we have a basic course, which essentially, like we did this week with the guys, just to give them, the knowledge and the experience of working with lead, but also doing some of the basic stuff like the chimney work and things like that. We also then have the intermediate, which is 8 weeks long, and they go into everything from gutters, cladding, dormers, you name it, they do it. And then you've got the advanced course, which then takes them into casting, doing some of the more ornate lead work. So we have a real kind of broad range of people coming in. Those that are slaters and tilers that just want to do a basic lead course, to those who are actually in the trade and they're taking it from basic right the way through to the advanced.
No, it's good. It's really good. And so what happened then? So you came out of the Royal Engineers and you went self-employed for a few years.
Yeah, I went self-employed for a few years. I came out after about 15 years. Decided I'd had enough and I needed to do something different. So I came out. My wife, I won't say it on here, but she was, when I first said I was getting out, there was a few things that she said, and I said, "Well, it's just, I've got a year to think about it. Let's just do it." And it was hard. It was really hard, because everything, you'd been used to being in this bubble where you were given everything essentially in the military. Whether it was house, your uniform, all of these things were just handed to you on a plate, and then you come out and you think, "Oh, hang on a minute. I've got a mortgage to pay, I've got this to pay, I've got that to pay." And it was really difficult. But after a year, things seemed to settle down and move on. It's a choice that I made. So I had to make it work.
And how come you came out and went self-employed rather than I'll get a job and see if I can ease my way into this? It does sound a bit like...
Yeah, I just wanted to...
A bit risky.
I think I just wanted to work for myself and just see how that would pan out. It's and actually I found it was not work shy at all, but it's hard work. You're not just doing your day job. You're coming home at night, you're doing your quotes, you're doing your invoicing, you're doing your and the days are long, they're hard, and when you start getting into your kind of mid-30s, you start to look at things and think, well, is this something I want to be doing for the next 15, 20 years? And all of those things are going on in your head at the same time.
It's mentally taxing. That's one thing I've found with sort of, being in business, or even just starting out self-employed, but probably more business owner now with the team around me that I've got and stuff. But it's like you can never switch off. So you're mentally taxed like all day. I'm probably in a more fortunate position now that like I'm off the tools. So, but it's still really mentally taxing. There's still tons to do in terms of, it doesn't ever seem like the hard work of actually putting on roof tiles or slating or doing lead work or whatever, but it's I think there comes a point where you just can't do it all. And if you're not going to be willing to take that leap of faith to actually become a business owner as such that's not on the tools, then you're going to at some point need to find another way, because your body's either going to give up or your mind's going to give up, and then you've got to do something. So was that what kind of brought the training around then? So
I had obviously, having come from a military background, my CV was always around on what they call the regional forces employment agency. And a guy phoned me up one day and he said, "Look, you got great CV, we've got an opportunity to for you to go and teach in schools.
Yeah.
Do you want to have a go? And I said, well, okay, let's do it. And I went and did a trial day just to see what it was like. The kids were off the wall. It was just there's no other way of saying it. But it captured you. You just thought, I can do something with these kids. We can teach these kids something that they'll learn for life and do something different. And that's where it went from there, really. And I got the interview, got the job. Quickly got promoted within that. So I went from being an instructor to then being director of the Southeast, and running various different projects all around.
What was it you were teaching at that point?
So at that time, we were teaching young people, basic skills, first aid, things like, they called it the Certificate of Personal Effectiveness, where they were learning about themselves a lot. And obviously the main aim was to try and keep them in education.
Yeah.
Because
like re-engage them.
And keeping them in education. And a lot of the things that we delivered in the classroom were all GCSE equivalent gradings. So if they weren't going to get something in school, they would at least kind of come out with something. And the schools really valued that, because they were tough. They were tough students. So I had a good 7 years, something with them. I then moved to a company called Catch-22, who are a charity, and they do a lot of great work across the whole of the UK, whether it's in prisons, they've got their schools, and they do some fantastic work. And I was there for about 4 years. I was then made redundant from there, and I was a bit disillusioned then by the whole education thing, and I wanted to take a break. So I said to my wife, I said, look, I'm going to take a little bit of a break here, have a few months off and decide what I want to do with myself. And then I applied for the job at Barking and Dagenham College as the director of apprenticeship. Thought a college environment, it's probably more akin to where I probably needed to be at that time, and got the job.
Had it just become too much of a slog, do you think, for no return, or what made you disillusioned? Like,
I think for me, I think it was just about having been made redundant, when you're doing a great job. I thought, why is this happening?
You start to question if they really care about, like, the people you would have been helping, really.
Absolutely.
As well, you think.
And that was one of my things, and I thought, this is tough. It's really, really tough. And I had so many questions in my head, and I thought, you know what, I need to do something a little bit different here. I need a break. But don't get me wrong, the job at Barking and Dagenham College was great. The journey to and from wasn't, but the job itself was fantastic. And obviously working in apprenticeships was great as well. That was fantastic. And I saw a lot of great things happening, where we were moving from frameworks to standards, development of new apprenticeships. The staff were great. And it was fantastic. But then 2 years down the line, things change again in the college world. I was made redundant again, and I thought, this is just ridiculous. So again, took another career break, thought a couple of months off, see how it goes. And then I got approached again by another agency and said, look, your CV looks great. Got a job for you.
What sort of, see, when you take the career break? I've never had one of them. But like, what happens? Is that you like realigning your purpose to go, I'm going to get back into something, but it needs to be the right thing that I'm going to give everything to?
I've always been quite resilient, but I think sometimes you need to have that space. Just to, because when you're coming out of one thing and then trying to go into another, I don't think you give yourself time just to kind
reflect
on what happened. So to have that time just to go, I just need the time just to see what comes next. And I was fortunate enough to be able to do that. Not everybody can do that. So I knew I was in a lucky space, to be honest. But it just does give you that headspace to think, right, what do I want to do? Where do I want to go?
It makes sense, because a lot of people just like throw themselves from one thing into the next thing, and can never quite work out, why am I not getting to where I want to be in life? And it's just because they maybe haven't paused for a second to actually think about what it is they actually want to do. The amount of young people that we maybe speak to who, like, they just don't know what they want to do, and then you try to explain to them like none of us do.
Yeah.
Do you know, we're in our 30s, 40s, 50s, and we're still going, not sure if this is it, but
absolutely. And I think we push people. I think we
Yeah.
push people constantly to what you must do, you must do, you must do.
Yeah.
But actually, you know, there's hundreds of examples out there of people who think that they're in the right job,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden go, do you know what? I don't like this. I want to do this,
Yeah.
and then they end up doing something they really love.
Yeah.
So, and that happens throughout your whole life.
And sometimes you've just never seen anything else.
No.
You get stuck into that bubble, like what you said, with like when you were at like the Royal Engineers. It's like you're in a bubble that you don't know what else exists until you get out of the bubble and then go, oh, there's a whole other world.
Absolutely,
here.
yeah.
I think it resonates a wee bit back to like a scene. Obviously, you were working with like our guys this week, and like if they were maybe like struggling with a weld or something wasn't quite going right, you would tell them to just take a breather and go and take a break and come back in. And it's almost like probably for them, they're like thinking, oh, we shouldn't be taking breaks all the time. We need to be working hard. But there is just a time for like reflection and just like chill and just like just go and relax and come back at it from a different angle, because if not, you can just kind of be almost stuck in the hamster wheel a wee bit. So it's relatable in training, but it's also relatable just in life in general.
Absolutely. And when they come back in, having had a break, all of a sudden it was going the way they wanted it to.
Yeah.
So, you know, and it's hard work. So when you're doing it constantly, it's just being able to take that break.
I think it's just, it's so relevant in this like period of like the world's in, basically. Everything's 100 mile per hour now. It's scrolling the phones. It's jumping in from one thing to the next thing. Nobody's pausing. Nobody's taking a break. So it needs to probably be that people are educated a wee bit more on that side of it. So it's nice to hear you speaking about it, and that's how I'm diving into it a wee bit, rather than just going, oh right, you took a wee break and then move on. It's like, what actually happened there? Because a lot of people won't actually know how to do that.
Yeah. I'm quite a reflective person, so I do reflect a lot.
Yeah.
Whether it's even the training we've done this week, I'll go back and think, right, was there anything I could have done better there? Was there anything I missed? So I reflect a lot anyway.
Yeah.
But when you go through like that situation where you've just lost a job, or that's a big reflection point.
Yeah.
And you know, like you said, giving yourself that headspace just to think, right, what do I want to go do next? Yeah. That was really important.
Yeah. So director of apprenticeships at Dagenham and
Barking and Dagenham College.
Barking and Dagenham. And so I think you had got to there, you were a couple of years into that.
Yeah.
And
then like I said, got made redundant from that. And then,
sorry.
Yeah.
Just to take you through that again.
So we get, that was, a lot of that was down to the new standards and the way the standards were going. And we had a team who were trying to develop this new standard and the way it was going. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, we don't need this anymore. We don't need that anymore. And and colleges are quite fickle, I think. Colleges, sometimes they can pick up whole departments and say, right, well, that's not doing very well. Off you go. Mm-hmm. And it was a bit of an eye opener, to be fair, having worked in that college environment. And I just didn't like the way that was kind of run and things like that. But at the end of the day, it is what it is, and you just got to move on. And then, left there, and again was approached by an agency. I think it was around about the September time, and they said, "Look, we've got a great job for you. Mm-hmm. You look like you got the skill set. How you're interested?" Yeah. And I went for the interview, and that was it. We've been there 5 years now. It's fantastic. It was an opportunity for me to grow a business. And work with some great people. So and I do work with some great people, and it's been fantastic since I started. So here I am now 5 years later. Yeah.
And what's the differences been in this environment compared to the other ones? So you've actually been through quite a different. You've seen quite a wide scope of the world, really, from the army side to then actually having the schools, then the colleges, which is probably a bit different, and then. Now, is it more that, like in this setting, people's coming to you to be trained, rather than in the other settings, you're probably actually having to almost force them to be trained almost?
Yeah. There is an element of that, but I think for me it was the autonomy. Yeah. To be able to run a business the way I think it should be run.
Yeah.
And you know, that for me was a big kind of, you know, plus.
Yeah. So you've got more control over how it should be, and they're giving you quite a bit of freedom on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And also being able to do other things. So, you know, as an example, you know, we do the lead, we do the hard metals.
Yeah.
We also do still saw training, so which is an important part of construction. You can't get on a site without being trained.
Yeah.
We do manual handling. We do other things. You know, we're now working in partnership with Simeon, so they're now a satellite centre with us.
Yeah.
And they're starting to run COTS courses and you know, basic scaffold inspection courses.
Yeah.
So it's about diversifying a little bit, but keeping it industry specific.
Yeah.
So obviously scaffold, roofing.
It ties in with the
absolutely
with
all them sorts of things.
So you're given like almost like the whole package as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So you know, and being able to just kind of push things forward and you know, develop not only the lead work but also the hard metals.
Yeah.
And work with people like yourself, you know, like our other satellite centres that we've got. You know, working with roofers all over the country, essentially.
It's a buzz, to be honest, training. Like I've took a lot of pride in like having put the training on for the lads this week, having you up here and just seeing them proud, holding their stuff up. You know, we got the photos yesterday and stuff like that, and you're thinking, some people just won't get that chance. Yeah. And like I was saying it to you, because obviously we got battered with a storm. Well, it was the Friday before you were coming up on the Monday. Obviously this is like recorded in a lag, so it wasn't last week. But anyway, it was, you know, it would have been so easy for us to say, look, John, there's been a storm. Half a dozen lads there are meant to be on the training, but do you know what, we'll just push it back. We're going to get them onto some emergency repair works and stuff. And some people might look at that and think you could have helped more customers or whatever. But to me, I thought, if you're going to train people, then train them. Yeah. Like, don't put it out there and say, oh, we train our people, we give back, we do this, and that's our company values, and then don't do it. So I felt like there was a real actual decision to be made there, and I think that we made the right one, because we put the team first and their training needs first, and I think it just sets us off on a good sort of foundation for going forward to say, right, when we book it in the next time, can't be anything much worse than a big storm. The first one in 12 years that's been red weather warning. So I'm quite proud of that, to be honest. Yeah, and I want us to continue to make the difference, you know. Yeah. Although, and it's not just about doing it, like, because we've done it in the past where we've maybe done a week lead training or whatever, and then no picked it up. This time it needs to be about us picking it up and just like keeping in touch with yourself and giving the guys wee refreshers and getting them out on them rigs and stuff. Although we've not got like a full-blown roofing academy as such, I want us to just like make use of the small steps that we can on the way towards that, rather than thinking it's either like all or nothing. There is an in-between. It's just keep nursing it along. It's probably as more than you would be doing if you're doing nothing. So just keep doing something. So I think the thing is with yourself and maybe with some other companies as well is, you know, training's not just for the young people that you want to bring into the industry. It's for your whole workforce. It's upskilling. So it's upskilling those individuals. You know, you might have guys who've 20 years with you, but never touched a bit of lead. Yeah. So, you know, having that opportunity for them to go, do you know what? That's something I've always wanted to do. Yeah. You know, it's fantastic. And also in the apprenticeship world, you know, there's no age limit on apprenticeships anymore. Yeah. And you can upskill your own workforce on an apprenticeship. You know, they're not going to get any less money, but they are going to be upskilled, which should be advantage to you, you know, whether it's they go and do a survey course or they go and do something different, you know, it's just avenues for them to kind of it's one of these things that like growth's one of our core values here, and we always like to see people progressing, and like we try to create a pathway so, like you said, they can come off the tools and go into a surveyor role, or they can maybe move into like supervisors or contract supervisor, contracts manager. There's even all these office roles that exist. We were having a chat sort of off air about that, how it's mostly females in my business that does all of that stuff, but it's not to say a roofer couldn't go and train how to schedule the guys onto jobs, or you know, some of these other bits that exist, the estimating side and things like that. So there's actually just so much can be done. I do think there's a lack of resource, and the only way that we can really make it better is probably by upskilling and trying to bring more people in as well. I'd be lying if I said that there was enough people out there, because there probably doesn't seem to be enough coming in and being able to go through that pathway I talk about. And I'm quite ambitious, so I like to see it moving quite quick. But I do feel that we need to do more work on like having the pathway as well. So like having that lead training this week, that's great, but that's only one small part of the whole ecosystem. Like what we're going to do with all the other parts of the trade, and how are we going to take them from being where they start to maybe being like contracts manager one day or whatever. So like guys that's here, like my brother, for example, he's kind of worked his way up through it, and he's went into the different various roles, and you see it all unfold for people. I think it's just like you said earlier, you're quite resilient. I think it's just people have got to be resilient, and they maybe take wee knocks along the way, but they just keep going. The path will kind of appear at some point.
Absolutely, yeah, it will.
And it's just all. I think as well with the training side, it probably gives people a bit of a sense of value. Like a few of the guys were saying, "Oh, thanks very much for putting me on it," and things like that. And you know, it probably there's not everybody that will do that for their staff. Not to say that we're anything special, but it's just we are that way. We're at least thinking about it and then doing it. And we just need to keep it up, I guess.
Yeah.
See, so you were talking about how there was a couple of experiences there that you didn't really like how things were run, and then like you like the fact that you've got a bit of control over it now, that you can. Where do you think the colleges perhaps, or the schools maybe, where do you think they're going wrong then? Without maybe putting the boot into them too much, but like, what do you think's not working in this overall skills shortage? Like, what's?
I think from a school perspective, I think there's a perception that you have to stay in sixth form, or you have to stay in sixth form and then go on to university.
Yeah.
Apprenticeships now are so broad. You can pretty much do anything in an apprenticeship that you can do at university. Yeah. So if you want to do a degree apprenticeship, or you go to university.
Yeah.
And I think it's emphasizing that to a lot of young people.
Yep.
Getting them in at an earlier age. So maybe going in at year 9, going and speaking to the schools, speaking to the young people at year 9 and saying, look, are you aware that there are over 130 different trades that you can do in the construction industry? And obviously roofing specific, because that's why we're here.
Yeah.
I think if you can kind of get into that, information, advice, and guidance at an earlier age, I think it does have an impact on what they perceive to be, the right choice for them.
Yeah.
So that's that aspect. I think another aspect, obviously, we've talked many times about females in construction and things like that, and I think, one of the ways in which you can try and increase the workforce is to get more females into construction.
Because you're doubling your chances, aren't you? Because you're not going to just after one gender, essentially.
Absolutely.
Right, we'll treat everyone equally who can come into this. It's not just a men's sport as such. It's a career for anyone.
And it's diversity is key. And I think if you can get people in, females in, once they've got one in, then all of a sudden it's them maybe speaking to their friends or their family members, and the network goes wider and wider and wider, and you hopefully try to kind of break down those barriers. We're really lucky at the LSTA. We had Amelia start with us back in November last year. She's hard metal worker, so she's on our specialist applied skills program. She works for Salmon Solutions, absolutely fantastic, and doing really well on the course. And hopefully, she's got a friend that might want to become a hard metal worker. Yeah. So, you can see it already. Yeah. You can see it already working in that aspect. We've also got Maddie, who's our trainer. She's a female trainer, and again, she's fantastic. She worked in the industry 20 years ago.
Yeah,
where she was probably the minority in terms of female lead workers working in that industry.
Yeah.
And again, she came back to me probably about 18 months, 2 years ago now, and said, look, I really want to get into it, but I don't want to go back on the tools. I've got the experience. I said, okay, fine. So we did a bit of upskilling with her because she'd been out of it for so long.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. Does a really, really great job. Guys really like her, and it brings a little bit of, it brings something different to the training, which is really good.
Yeah.
So, that's just one element, I suppose, that you need to be looking at. I suppose the other thing is, putting more funding into training.
Yeah.
Having people, you know, like yourself or like, you know, other people, you know, obviously you're building a business, but you'll get to the point where you'll think, right, well, how do I now impart all of this knowledge onto somebody else?
Yeah.
Or it might even be your guys that are down there roofing.
Yeah.
You know, so they may have had 30 years in the industry and think, you know what, I can't do this anymore. So what's my next step?
Yeah.
Training.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
You've
There
got
should
the
be a
knowledge.
pathway for that. Yeah.
Absolutely. You've got the knowledge, you've got the experience. You know, that is a, you know, an obvious step for the next person. But on top of that, I suppose, you know, the trades generally earn very, very good money.
Yep.
You know, and if you're a time served person in the industry, you'll have earned some good money over that 30 years. To then come into training where it will probably drop by half. Yeah. You know, I think there needs to be more investment. There needs to be more money pumped into it so that people all of a sudden I see that as an option for me now. I don't want to lose 30 grand. I want to be up or around that figure. So, you know, there's lots of things that I think we need to do still in order to try and change.
I sometimes see that a little bit like footballers in a sense. Do you know, they get paid this incredibly high amount of money, but it's a short career. And roofing can be, from the point of view that, like, once you probably get into your 40s, your body's probably knackered because you've been on your knees like for 20 plus years or whatever. And like your back's breaking, your, like, do you know, your fingers, like, just all them cold mornings trying to get into the nail pouch and stuff. Like, you're just, your body's like battered, to be honest. So you've probably got to think about what's at the other side of that. A lot of the older roofers, I think, like, sort of in the 2008 kind of crash, like, we've seen, like, a lot of them just went to like Tesco warehouse and stuff like that because the industry was like it was tightened up, basically. There wasn't much happening, and a lot of people were getting out of it, and I think at that point we lost a lot of the industry. You'll have met Stephen this week, who's been with me. I think he must be close on maybe almost 10 years or something with us now. But he came out of, like, he went into Tesco during that time. It's just like sore shoulders, sore hands and everything during the crash, and then I brought him out of that and back in with us. So it's good because he's passing his skills on again now. And then he worked with us. He mostly did flat roofing, and then his shoulders were getting painful again. Everything came quite sore. So it was during COVID time. I kind of restructured the business because we'd stopped. We were on furlough for like 3-4 months. So I was like, had it all up on a big whiteboard. I was like, how should this business run? Where could the efficiencies be? And I actually brought Stephen off the tools and got him sort of doing this supervisor role, and he's continued to do that as well as like other things as well. And it just shows you, like, but he could have been lost. And that's how easy it happens. So it's just I'm waffling, to be fair, but
no, but it's important.
You know, it's just trying to how do you
harness all of that skill?
How do you find a way of getting them to get it passed on? And then the other problem is you've got ones who's probably willing to pass it on, but they've had quite a long, hard career as well. And if this person who's just coming in is like on their phone, no paying attention and know what to take the knowledge in, then these people will give up. So you're trying to find a way to educate the younger ones to be like, please listen to these guys. And then to these guys, please teach these guys. And we're in the middle going, how are we going to make this join, like these dots join, essentially? Because I'm with you. Like, I think there's too much emphasis on universities and stuff. Like, you're a failure if you get a trade, almost, is sometimes how it comes across. We go in and do like the school fairs. We go in and people will come over and be like, Taylor roofs, right, okay. And then they'll be like, I'm like, have you ever heard of an apprenticeship before? You ever heard of roof? No. And you're like, surely the school should have told them, like, this is the people that's coming along, and by the way, there's roofing apprenticeships, there's this. Like, but it's like they're not even hiding the fact that they're not even telling anybody that a trade is a potential career path.
It's a good career path.
And that's where, like, I probably, in a sense, try and fly the flag a little, because you know, I'll be I think it'll be next year, that'll be like 20 years in the industry for me, and I've been able to get in there, get an apprenticeship, have a few years employed with a company, then go out with myself self-employed, go through the gears to now, like we're like 40 odd staff, multi-million-pound roofing company. It's like, that's in 20 years.
Yeah.
Like, I know everybody wants everything fast, but that is quite fast.
Yeah, yeah.
20 years is quite quick. And if you're going on through your phone and it's one of these get-rich-quick schemes and online e-commerce or whatever it is, it's like the fact that they're saying you'll be rich in 3 months, too good to be true.
Yeah.
20 years is probably a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
So there's that element of, that's why I probably started the podcast as well. Like, this does get to some young people. They show it in some of the local schools, like in the CDT, they'll say like, oh, there's like a joiner who was on Jamie's podcast, or there's like a stonemason, and they're trying to kind of show things. So there's that whole element of these young people, letting them know about it, showing them what there is there to, like why they should get into it, and just that it even exists. But then I do feel like there is a gap in the training that's actually there, that, like, from, you said, a funding point, but just like I just feel like there's something missing in it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel like I can confidently bring somebody in and say, at the end of this 4 years, this is where you'll be. It's quite like loose. It really, like, if we take Robbie as an example, so our apprentice of the year last year who won that, and you've met Robbie a couple of times, and he was training on the lead there and did really good.
Yeah.
That's because he's good at that, and he's applying himself. But like, the next person might want to learn it, but it just don't learn the same way as him, and might just not have the same attention to that. So it's like, I just feel like the only ones who's really doing good in the trades now is, and I would probably count myself a wee bit like this, like, I wanted it. I really, really wanted it. So like, I would clean up whatever I needed to clean up. Yeah. I would do the worst of jobs just so that I would be liked. Yeah. And then when I was liked, I would get a wee chance to learn. Yeah. The older tradesmen that I worked with, like, I knew, like, I was like, they're not going to be there forever. Like, what can I learn for these people? And even though they would sometimes be hard on you, you knew you were learning. I just feel like I just can't see that now.
Yeah, it's really, it's a really important, message, to put out there about, how people can get into the construction trades. You look at the government at the moment, they're saying, oh, we're going to build 1.5 million homes in the next 5 years. Who's going to build those houses?
Good luck with that.
They've got 250,000 shortfall in construction workers across the board, and then you've got this whole thing about schools not telling people about apprenticeships, or we as an industry, we are still building these homes that those individuals will live in the future. And it's, how do we get those individuals interested in saying, right, you could have a hand in this, you could build these 1.5 million homes, you could be part of that process. All of these new initiatives that are coming up with Heathrow, and we're going to build new runways, and we're going to, construction, it's what this country's built on. Yet we're really, for some reason, we struggle to get people through the door to turn around and say, right, I want to be a roofer, I want to be a lead worker, I want to be this, I want to, and there's a whole thing around messaging, I think, personally.
Yeah. And what about see the funding side of it?
Yeah.
Like, is it not just common sense that the government should just pump money into it?
Well, that's how, that should be it, essentially.
Because it's like, we want to deliver these 1.5 million houses, and like, here's X, that's how we're going to do it. But I just don't understand why government never seems to look at things like, if that was my business, for example, and I had 1.5 million houses to build, then I would be like, how are we going to deliver that? And you straight away you'd be thinking, right, we'll need some form of like training academy that sits here, that feeds these people. Do you know? It's not really that rocket science in my opinion, but
and I think the other thing is,
I'm just a roofer, I guess. So.
You've got training providers out there, small training providers, who sometimes can't access the funding that other larger training providers, i.e. colleges, can access. Yet they do an absolutely amazing job at what they do. And I think, to get the big funding, they have to either go down the DFE route or the ESFA route, to get the funding for apprenticeships, etc. But there's more to some of these things than just doing that. And I think more money needs to be put in and invested in making sure the trainers are correctly paid, you know, because they're coming from industry, these guys.
Yeah.
They've got a wealth of knowledge, wealth of experience,
Yeah.
and they should, you know, be getting paid the right money for what they do.
Yeah.
You know, there needs to be more investment in, you know, in how we impart that knowledge onto the schools. There's more investment in materials and, you know, resources, and
Yeah.
you know, you could go on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
But the bottom line is, it is about investment.
Yeah. It's just, you just wonder how long is it going to be left?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's been underfunded for years.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it's got worse over the years.
Yeah.
And I think it just, you know, we need to have, you know, I don't know how we do it. I don't know how you get to that point.
Yeah. That's
you
the
know,
issue. Everybody seems to be at that same thing.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's really got the answer. It's like, we've got the ideas,
yeah,
but there isn't actually anybody to fund it.
Yeah.
It's a sad state of affairs, to be honest.
Absolutely, it is.
And I think as well, when like I'll like draw my business out, like I like whiteboards or whatever, or I'll put it down on pen and paper, and I always put this training academy over here, and this idea of thinking, right, training manager, somebody who builds like the bespoke kind of program, then the people who deliver the training. I'm like, that's great, and I'm just like, how am I going to even possibly have that though?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's easy to say, well, put your own money into it, but believe it or no, there's no that much left. Even with a multi-million-pound company, you didn't keep much yet.
Yeah.
Do you know, most of it's back out the door, and even like the investment we've put into the training this week, do you know, it's quite substantial, really. Especially when you weigh up the fact that those guys aren't out earning you money for the week that they're doing that training as well. Yeah. So it's like, but that's actually like just such a small teardrop in like a massive ocean. Do you know, it's like we want to do so much more. Yeah, but we definitely need help.
Yeah, well, one of the things as well that's going to crop up is about BIM.
Yeah,
and that's going to be a big thing. They're introducing it into a lot of the MVQs now.
Right.
But you imagine, you know, you've got a guy that's been on site for 30 years, and you say to him, right, do you know what BIM is?
Yeah. What is it? Sorry.
It's building information modeling.
Right. Okay.
So it's about all the project management stuff that happens.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, households today, you know, they'll have a tradesman go in, and the tradesman will first of all, they'll obviously give them a quote. Then they'll give them, you know, the invoice.
Yep.
They might even give them additional information about, you know, the fact that it needs to be reserviced every 3 years. And,
yeah.
You know, sign off certificates and things like that.
Yeah.
But that will all be done electronically.
Right. Okay.
So that essentially, you know, in a nutshell, is BIM, but it goes wider than that in terms of, you know, project drawings, designs, you know, all of these sorts of things, and it's becoming more relevant.
Yeah.
In what we do,
yeah.
and that is
so
another
is this
big
going to
thing.
get introduced in then?
It's going to be introduced into the apprenticeships, into the MVQs.
It's probably quite good, actually.
Yeah, but again, it's down to individual companies. Then you know, obviously, if you're doing an apprenticeship, a lot of your learning's done on site.
Yeah.
So how do you then get that apprentice up to standard with what you're doing with regards to BIM? And you know. It's
See, that would maybe be okay for us in the sense that we could maybe take the apprentice and then get them to go with the surveying team or go into the estimating and stuff, but still, again, it's a commitment. You're taking them off site.
Yeah,
it's just who pays for that.
Yeah,
it's just,
absolutely. Yeah,
and you sound like you're kind of out with a begging bowl or something, but like, where does it come from?
Yeah.
And then you've got that thing where you could put X amount into training. And then there is always that thing where a lot of people won't do that. They'll just come and poach your staff, give them £1 an hour more or whatever it is. And, you know, these guys are in demand, and quite rightly so. Like, you know, you'll get the loyal ones, but there's ones who go, I'll just go and make more money. It's a short career, like we spoke about as well. Better go and make the most of it now.
Yeah.
So they're going to go, and then I think it was Alan Doris, so he's on the committee with us at the NFRC for the Scottish region. And he'd done a piece in, I think it was Roofing Today, and it was around that very thing. They're ploughing in X amount into their own like apprenticeship pathway that they've done. It's all flat roofing, but they've got a pathway there, and then you've got the other company over here who's much bigger than them, doesn't put anything into training, uses like a subcontracting model, and they're basically just taking those guys once they're qualified as subbies and giving them the extra money.
Yeah.
And they're making more money here, sort of being like self-employed for this other company, but they learnt the skills there.
Yeah.
So that company's just getting shafted now. He's wrote a piece about that, but like, there's no rules. Like, there's just, that's allowed to happen. So there's quite a lot of change needed.
There is.
What would you do if it was down to you, your Prime Minister tomorrow?
Well, we've talked about it. Obviously, it's the funding.
Yeah.
So I think getting more funding in. You know, you look statistically. You know, the NFRC produced their report from their survey in Q2 last year. You know, there's 42% shortfall in tilers.
Yep.
There's a 37% shortfall in slaters. 29% in lead. Flat roofing is around 35%, I think.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, they're almost like a third of the workforce.
Yeah.
You know, you're missing.
Yep.
You know, we've got 1.5 million homes to build. 250,000 shortfall in construction workers. Ultimately, it comes down to funding. It comes down to the training providers. To having more training providers. There's you know, if you're going to, you know, if you expect to have you know, that amount of people coming into training.
Yep.
You know, having more training providers shouldn't be seen as a negative. It should be seen as a positive.
Yeah.
Because those individuals are being trained, and there's enough to go around.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, there's a lot of things that you could do.
The other issue is that when you're taking the trainers over, like, you're losing somebody at the industry at that point as well. But you've got to do it in the hope that it's a chicken and egg scenario.
Absolutely.
Like, somebody goes over, starts to learn the skill, teach the skills back. They can maybe get like full classrooms of people in and through. Yeah. As that one person left, that's maybe like every one can take a class of 30 through or whatever. Say. So for every one, you're maybe getting 30 new good tradespeople, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's having those right people in those positions.
Yeah, well, that's it as well. If you offer like really low peanuts wages, you're not going to get somebody who's like really passionately wanting to do it. Yeah, I'm sure quite a lot of like older sort of tradesmen would be quite passionate about it if it was like, oh, I can match my money. Yeah, and get out of this cold, wet, wild Scottish weather or wherever you are in the UK. Yeah. Do you know and
being a time served. You know, that knowledge is you cannot put any you actually, you know, it's probably chicken and egg really, because I'm about to say that, you know, you can't put a price on that knowledge, but you can, because those individuals expect a certain amount of,
you've got to to now,
because you're going to lose it, you know, and it's just the little things sometimes, you know, they might just a little detail that you think, oh, that'll make life so much easier. Yeah, that's how we used to do it on site. You know, it's all of those little things that.
Some like when I was doing my apprenticeship, I was quite fortunate that there were some like older sort of guys there that like some of the things they taught you, it's just like it's not in any textbook. Yeah, you didn't see it at college. Yeah, it's just like experience, like just raw experience. Yeah, and it works, and it's right as well. It's not like because it's not in the textbook, or it doesn't exist. It's just there's sometimes wee gaps in the curriculum, if you like to call it that, where nobody's teaching it because it's kind of like a historic learning. Yeah, the wee tricks of the trade, you would call it probably.
But when you think about it, you know, whether it's roofing or lead work, you know, lead work's been done for probably the best part of 8,000 years. Wow. And some of the techniques they use are still being used today. The tools are exactly the same, albeit made of a different material. Yeah, you know, speaks for itself, really. Yeah,
well, that was fantastic, mate. I think that's us probably for time. We'll pick it up again, I think, at some point, because this conversation's going to go on for a while, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks again for coming on the podcast and for coming up and sharing your knowledge with our team. So
yeah, no, you're welcome. Thanks you very much.
Mate. Brilliant.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.